Hello, buds. This is Dave Chappelle, and we need to cancel his show. But he's going to ask us to help him, and so let's take a look at this.
So I'm not going to the agents. I'm coming to my real boss. I'm coming to you. I'm begging you. If you ever liked me, if you ever think there was anything worthwhile about me, I'm begging you. Please don't watch that show. I'm not asking you to boycott any network. Boycott me. Boycott Chappelle Show. Do not watch it unless they pay me.
So,
They weren't paying him for his own show?
and they don't pay him for the residuals or when it gets syndicated or when other people play it. So, you know, Friends, like every time that show gets played, everyone on that show gets paid. Every time his show gets played, he doesn't get anything. And it's
It's called residuals. It's not
Exactly.
It's not special to Friends.
But he doesn't get, and
He's the
Seinfeld, everyone,
exception.
yeah, no, that's what I'm
He's
saying.
not getting paid for his
Everyone
own show.
whose show gets picked up after and gets reshown, those actors like Jerry Seinfeld and like everyone who's been on a television show gets money afterwards. But Dave Chappelle, like it's been on Netflix because Comedy Central owns it, and anyways, yeah, why? That's a good question, and he's actually going to go into it, and so that's how I wanted to start the video is with him asking us to boycott, and let's take a look at why.
Do you know why Prince, the famous rock star that was a friend of mine, do you know why he called himself the artist when he came back? He calls himself the artist because that's what they call us in our contracts. Oh, these contracts are crazy. You should hear the terminology they say in these contracts. To use your name and likeness in perpetuity throughout the universe. Who the fuck could possibly know what that means?
Yeah. Unless you're like a lawyer.
Nobody does. It's so complicated, in fact, that when you're a kid like me, you have to hire somebody to tell you what that means.
So
to
what?
review your contracts. And,
Right. So what he's describing right now is he's in a meeting with Comedy Central. He's trying to pitch them this show, and so they're giving him an offer, but he's never seen like an
that
offer.
kind of paperwork.
Yeah, or that kind of language.
Yeah.
And so he's just I think he's like 28 at this time. He'll say his age, but let's keep going.
You sit down at a table and you do the contract game. And that's how I got with Comedy Central. I signed the contract. But I signed the contract the way that a 28-year-old expectant father that was broke signs a contract. I was desperate. I needed a way out. And it wasn't good money and it wasn't good circumstances. But what else am I going to do, I said. And all these white people sitting at that table told me, trust us, Dave, it's a good contract. And I looked around the table and they all seemed to agree it was a good contract. But what if...
For them.
What if it was like that game of three-card Monty?
So if you don't know what three-card Monty is, it's like a game with three cards, and two of them are black, one's red, and they're all face down, and they shuffle them, and you have to try to guess which one's the right one. So right before this, he had a story about how he was walking through New York, Greenwich Village, I think, or Greenwich Village, and he saw some guys playing, and there was like a big crowd, and they're hooting and he played. And he lost. And then he was so mad when he lost, he just sat there and watched. And he realized everyone that was losing money was in on it. Or making money was in on it. But then the people that were losing money were just walking up and getting hustled. And so that's what he's comparing it to. He's like, what if that meeting with Comedy Central, with the lawyers and the people who are making the contract and the people who are doing negotiations, what if they're all in on it? And the people that say it's actually good for me is actually on their side. They're not actually on my side.
For sure. That's who pays their paycheck.
Right. And so
He didn't bring them in. You got to bring your own.
I think
On
as
your
an
own
artist or as a comedian, it's the
You
business
gotta be like
side.
a business owner.
Right. The business side is incredibly exploitive. Like they will take as much as they can from you. And that's why it's called a contract negotiation, where you have to try to, like, that's really the only time where you can get any piece of the pie is like in the beginning.
Well, you have a talent that you cannot you don't know how to monetize yet. They're going to give you that platform, and then you negotiate you know, from there, the problem is like, how did they own it? Well, people negotiate full ownership when they create something. You see those contracts,
Right,
too.
but when you're like
they
a
were very
kid,
savvy. Yeah,
yes.
they weren't desperate.
So, okay, so let's keep going. So that's the situation. He's in this room and they're telling him it's a good contract. But now, you know, with some years, he feels like it's like that time he got hustled, like at a card game. He feels like it's the same thing.
Which I think everyone would probably agree, yeah, that's what happened.
Right.
Don't you think?
No, and that's
like,
why he's saying
it has his name on it.
exactly.
The Dave Chappelle
He
Show. It
made
wasn't
them
like-
this show and they stole it from him. All right, let's keep going.
What if they were all friends and I didn't know it? And the bag of money was Iceberg's money in the first place. What was I talking about? What was I trying to tell you? Last week, 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, I call Lauren Michaels and I tell him, okay, I'll do it. I'll do Saturday Night Live on election night. And the day I made that phone call, the day I committed to it, it gets announced that Netflix is streaming Chappelle Show.
Okay, so what that means is he called Lauren Michaels. Lauren Michaels is the guy who makes Saturday Night Live, and he says he's gonna do Saturday Night Live, and so that's a big announcement for Dave. And I think the show, and I think right when that happens, like people start to understand like this is a marketing like opportunity for him because once Dave is hot, his show is going to be hot. So Netflix picks it up.
Not just Netflix. HBO Max is streaming it too. Let me tell you another story about HBO. No, hear me out. Did you know, before Chappelle Show was at Comedy Central, I pitched that show to HBO. I told them what I wanted to do. Now, these are executives. All they have to do is say, yeah, we'll take it, or no, thank you, we won't. But they didn't say either of those things. They went too far. They said, literally, what do we need you for? That's what they told me, as they kicked me out of the office. What do we need you for? And here we are, all these years later, and they're streaming the very show that I was pitching to them. So I'm asking them, what do you need me for?
That's got to be infuriating because if you're like an artist and you're pitching your show and they respond like that, you feel like you're like a liability for them because they're the ones that have to like invest the money to like get your show made and they're taking on the risk. But then that's how they treat you, right? As a risk. But then once your show is successful and like it's making money, all of a sudden you're an asset and they're like, yeah, we'll take on your show. But like,
well, that's the definition of.
No, I know that's right. That's why I'm kind of differentiating it from like HBO's point of view. Is that at the beginning when Dave was pitching the show, it was a risk. Now they see him as an asset, and he's not getting paid. That's like the ridiculous
like they'd rather
thing.
deal with those white execs because they know them. It's like
it sucks.
they get paid.
It's like
both of them, Comedy Central and HBO.
It's like
and
he got punched twice.
The guy who made it out.
Yeah, he got punched in the beginning because they're like, "What do we like? You haven't proved yourself to us." And then it's like once he's proven themselves to him, they like take his show and don't pay him. And it's like, oh my God.
They'll claim, "Oh, we didn't know. Comedy Central approached us, or we
right."
Approached
well, I'm just saying
from
like Dave's point of view, it's like he gets screwed over by every network. And I mean, that's the game. But that's what we all have to learn from. It's like this is how even the people that we consider who made it, how much they've gotten screwed over.
People think I made a lot of money for Chappelle Show. When I left that show, I never got paid. They didn't have to pay me because I signed the contract. But is that right? I found out that these people were streaming my work and they never had to ask me or they never had to tell me. Perfectly legal because I signed the contract. But is that right? I didn't think so either.
Wow, so they didn't pay him.
They didn't even have to tell him. They didn't have to tell him because he has no ownership over it.
Yeah.
Was what.
That's why, man, I think that's why he keeps stressing, like, because it's in the contract. Like, there's literally nothing he can do because of something
sign your life away.
he signed when he was 28. And it's like a TV show. Who wouldn't say no to that?
With his name on it.
And they didn't pay him. And I think people assume, like, oh, he walked away from $50 million or whatever, so he must have gotten paid something. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it's not even close to what they made off of Chappelle Show.
His show, yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I like working for Netflix. I like working for Netflix because when all those bad things happened to me, that company didn't even exist.
So new.
And when I found out they were streaming Chappelle Show, I was furious. How could they not know? So you know what I did? I called them and I told them that this makes me feel bad. And do you want to know what they did? They agreed that they would take it off their platform just so I could feel better. That's why I fuck with Netflix. Because they paid me my money, they do what they say they're gonna do, and they went above and beyond what you could expect from a businessman. They did something just because they thought that I might think that they were wrong. And I do. I think if you are fucking streaming that show, you're fencing stolen goods.
So what he means by fencing stolen goods, when people, I guess when people steal something, they have to hand it off to someone to sell it for them. And that person that sells their stolen goods for them is called a fence. That's the person who finds the buyer. So when
broker.
Yeah. And so when the broker is the fence, yeah, and he finds the buyer. Mm-hmm. And so when Dave says, if you're streaming the show, you're fencing stolen goods, he's saying the show was stolen from me, mm-hmm. and you're helping the people who stole it make money.
Well, they could have done what anyone else, any business person would have done, like he said, was say, no, well, you signed the contract.
Right, and that's props to Netflix for seeing him.
Business-wise, they would have been like, he can't go after them. But the fact that, like he said, just because of how he felt.
Well, I think Netflix, props to Netflix, they see Dave Chappelle as a bigger asset than his previous content. Yeah. They're like, the new stuff he's giving is
alive and
right.
He's on fire because he's mad.
And so maybe that's why Netflix is so successful, is because they're willing to operate outside of that standardized business model of like.
That's how they made it.
Yeah.
That's how they seem to keep wanting to go in that trajectory, which is like, oh, that's good. Mm-hmm. This is how businesses should be. Because in the end, the truth will come out. Like, I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm glad I don't have HBO.
Yeah.
These little boycott, like, because, I mean, I like his stuff, but I can't believe, what? Come on, Comedy Central. You could have renegotiated that. Like, you knew, like,
that's
later been like, oh, sorry, we thought maybe.
Imagine how much more money they would have made if they kept Dave on board. If they actually, gave him residuals. And then they have all of his specials. Like, if they treated him well, like I think he would have made them way more money. But the fact that they're so exploitive and short-sighted, like in the beginning, shows that they're not.
Short-sightedness, they didn't lose that. Like, they kept.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But then it doesn't matter to them because they made their money. And so
they're still making their money because he signed the contract. Like, which sucks.
But props to Netflix for seeing Dave as a bigger asset, even post that. All right, let's keep going.
Stole that from me. They just took it. And I'm not up here trying to tell you guys that I believe that Comedy Central gave me a raw deal just because I'm black. I believe that they gave me a raw deal because this fucking industry is a monster. It's the same monster that these Me Too bitches was trying to tell you about. But they hate the monster for how it fucks. And I hate that monster for how it eats. But my God, man, it's the same monster. When I quit the show,
that's so interesting. So I think the monster is just like exploiting artists or just exploiting people. I think anytime you're in a negotiation table with like people with a lot more power, that's the thing you're fighting is being exploited as
Yeah, it's like abuse of power.
Yeah.
Though, because even when people make it, it's like, man, it takes so long for them to like get what's recognition for the wrongs, even though everyone on a personal note would say, yes, that's wrong, and then and yet it's perpetuated throughout the whole system or the whole
But
industry.
I think the way that we call out the wrongs are a lot more similar, and I think that's why he's like pointing out. It's like we're all pointing at the same monster, and it's like, I guess as an artist, anytime you go into a negotiation room, you got to expect to be negotiating against like Harvey Weinstein, I guess. Like if it's not your body they want like your art or your intellectual property or like something like really valuable that they're trying to exploit from you.
Well, they wouldn't say exploit. It's more like, I have so much to offer and there's a billion of you guys trying to get me to sign with you. So, they're like, so I get this much of or I deserve this, or like there's like this entitlement. And then but how that turns horrendously into like abuse is, I don't know. I don't know how you correct for that.
Yeah, because we haven't really standardized like the behavior or like the model for these contracts. I mean, kind of, but like there's still like these incredible like examples of exploitation that's like insane.
Maybe because there's some on the other side where like, oh yeah, well I made them do this for me, and then they were like, wow, they made out well. It's like any artist that does well for themselves like that is financially savvy and is able to like.
Yeah, Harvey Weinstein made really good movies, and like and like it a lot of people were like debating on like whether or not like he did so much good for his career, but he was such a horrible person, like whether or not to like not say anything or to like speak up against it. All right, anyways, let's keep going.
All my friends would say, well, fuck them, Dave. Why don't you just do Chappelle Show at another network? Yeah. And why doesn't a slave run from one plantation to another plantation? Because the master over there might be nicer.
HBO.
My God, man, I was trapped. You know what? Tell you the truth. I've even thought about coming back and doing another Chappelle Show. Well, but if I do, I can't call it Chappelle Show because my name and likeness is being used by them in perpetuity throughout the universe. It's in the contract.
Oh, that's
the universe. Like,
can't even.
How do they even? I know he lost his name.
Yeah, that's his name.
Right to his name. Like, can he?
That's like Seinfeld. Jerry Seinfeld not being able to make another show called Seinfeld. I mean, yeah, that's the example, right? If Jerry Seinfeld wasn't able to make another show called Seinfeld because NBC owns it, and like you can't make another show about your life. So at like 28,
be like copyright or whatever.
Right. So at 28 years old, he signed away like his life likeness to Comedy Central. That's why there isn't another Chappelle Show, because he literally can't make one because he signed something. Maybe he should go to China.
Yeah, I was like, what if he produces in another country?
Dave Chappelle Show. I'd watch it. All right, let's keep going.
Yeah, do it in a different language.
No, if you do it in a different country, I think you can get around those contracts because it's not.
Hey man, go to Bollywood.
Yeah, they would love you. You're around the same color.
Wait, no, they might try to bleach him.
Yeah, actually.
You're not supposed to do this in my business. I'm up here doing something that nobody else in this business has the balls to do. I'm telling you something that you need to know. I'm trying to explain to you what you're seeing. You don't understand what you're seeing. I am publicly flogging a network. And I know that this network niggas, they watching me and they saying, why are you doing this so publicly? Doesn't feel good to be flogged publicly. Oh, believe me, I know. I know exactly how that feels. When I quit my show, they said I was crazy. What was crazy about it? I just didn't want to do it anymore. They said I smoked crack. That's impossible. I was a devout Muslim. I didn't smoke or drink. But I do now, bitch, because you ruined my fucking life.
So he says he's publicly flogging this company. And I think what he means is like he's pointing out how they treated him so that other artists who come to the negotiation table know what to expect. Prepared.
Yeah.
Right.
And you could negotiate. The problem is you can't say that when you're, like you said, when you're in that situation, you're broke, desperate, and you want to break, and you're trying to follow your passion, and it's the time where it's like, if no one picks you up, you can't keep doing it.
Right, but
how else are you gonna take the? You can't prove that you're gonna make it.
No. But we have Netflix now. We have other studios that are willing to probably like take a chance.
Is it? Because he was like, why don't you? Yeah.
Without such crazy exploitive like contract terms. I think that's what he means by.
And also, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it didn't exist back then.
No, I know. So that's why he's saying he's publicly flogging now. So people who walk in to those contract negotiations, yeah, they're better prepared to understand like this isn't the way it has to be, and I don't have to get as screwed over at like Dave Chappelle.
And just because they take you to nice fancy dinners and stuff,
right? And so
you got a good deal.
The risk, I think, of
good deal is relative,
right? And I think the risk of publicly flogging a company like this is like, as an actor, you can get blacklisted very easily. Like no studio.
He's already lost his name, like and image, like control over that. So what's left?
Yeah,
he would have to reinvent himself. Everyone knows who he is. Everyone knows his name. For him to even try to make another,
he's really gained a lot of like comedic cred and like celebrity like capital. Like he doesn't have any like stories about him. There's no.
And now that the truth
controversies,
is coming out,
right?
Yeah,
he doesn't have any controversies, and now he's just speaking up.
That was the only thing, that he was on crack because he quit.
Oh right. Yeah, and it was made up.
And that was a rumor, yeah.
But now he's like using all of that cred to like point out like all of the wrongs that has like happened in his career. And I think it's actually like detrimental to those companies now because of like the new talent that they try to recruit.
The way if something went viral socially. Like he's able to make it.
I know, and I think that's what he's trying to do. I think he's trying to do what like the Me Too people were trying to do, which is like getting more attention to these things that have happened.
And so more people are outraged. They're going to get inundated with like, why don't you correct for it? Why don't you correct for it? Like that's the only way.
That's why this episode's called Cancel Dave Chappelle or Cancel the Chappelle Show. There we go.
The Chappelle Show.
Look how angry he looks. He's so mad about this. And rightfully so.
Wouldn't you be? How many years of, oh my gosh. I would have a breakdown and thrown a hissy fit.
Now it's their turn. This is their first nigga lesson, and I'm honored to give it to them. They're gonna pay me for this show. I called my agent. I said, "Is there anything I can do about this show?" And he said, "No." Well, fuck you too then. If you want something done right, I guess you gotta do it yourself.
Thanos.
Or find someone who's willing to help.
I'm coming to my real boss. I'm coming to you. I'm begging you, if you ever liked me, if you ever think there was anything worthwhile about me, I'm begging you, please don't watch that show. I'm not asking you to boycott any network. Boycott me. Boycott Chappelle Show. Do not watch it unless they pay me.
It's like a musical artist deal. There's a lot of musical artists that like don't get paid, even though their music is like played like millions of times
because they signed a contract with a production company or label company or whatever.
That should. I mean, yeah. I wish more artists
by somebody in in that.
Yeah. So
industry.
I wish more artists were vocal about that. Like, don't listen to this. I'm not getting paid. Like, if you're support me, don't support this.
It's almost because they half the times they feel like a sucker. I mean, victims, that's like same with the Me Too. There's a lot of victims and you can't ever push them to come out because it's like you're so ashamed almost of like you just got like you said, scammed and then to have no standing and everyone tells you can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Why would you then keep embarrassing yourself telling people that happened? You know what I mean?
And he should be proud of, I mean, I'm sure he is proud of his work, but like it sucks that like it's tainted by like that exploitive deal that he got because like he can't watch the show. He can't even tell other people to watch it because he's not,
because that just is, you're just then perpetuating the same thing. And
like you just feel like a sucker, like you got suckered. And that's
and the more popular it gets, the more people say, I love your show, I just started watching it. It's like and he's not getting paid for it, like he's not,
it's like that show that was literally stolen from me, like all of my hard work and original ideas, like stolen.
If you're a shareholder at Viacom, then I'm talking to you. Because all that shit that they do to us, well, they do everything for their shareholders. That's what they told me. So if you're a shareholder in that company, tell them it's wrong. And if you don't believe that it's wrong, then fuck you too.
I think that's...
They always blame someone. It passes the buck until...
Well, no, it's like he's just saying if you're a shareholder, that means if you're an equity owner, like you actually own a piece of Viacom or whatever the company is, if you don't think it's wrong, then fuck you too. And I think what that means, it's like...
they're letting it happen.
Yeah, if you don't believe... I think the message is like, if you think that we're artists to be exploited and not just like people that like... Or, you're not going to treat us like just people that treat people, like...
Because they're there to make money. They put in money
right. So the excuse, it's all for the shareholders, is just an excuse for that monstrative, exploitive behavior.
The way they do. Yeah.
Right. And that's what he's saying. It's like shareholders also have to get it in their minds like this isn't the way we should be doing business if there's going to be any change, because ultimately it's all for making more value for the shares and for the publicly traded company.
Yeah. And make it more viable, survivable in the long run.
Yes, but at the cost of ruining Black lives.
Or any of these
or
artists,
exploiting artists.
Like, how are they going to keep going at their craft that obviously is doing well if they don't get...
If they're not taken care of? Yeah, if they don't have the means or the resources.
From it and do,
No. All right, let's keep going.
Should know what's in the hot dogs you eat. Now, there's probably a bunch of people at Comedy Central and Viacom and all these places that have no idea what I'm talking about. They've all either quit or been fired or got Me Too or something. Them niggas. Now, there's a whole bunch of new young people there, and they're probably looking like, what is he talking about? They may not actually know what the fuck happened to me. So I'll tell you what I'm talking about. Go downstairs to your accounting department, open the books, see what that show made, and look at what you paid me. That's exactly what I'm talking about. You're going to pay me. I am inviting you to come with me and work with me. And let's fight against that terrible, terrible feeling that you made me feel together. We can fight together and work this thing with Chappelle Show out. Or I can just take it. Thank you.
Yeah, take it back, Dave. Boycott the Chappelle Show. Don't watch it. Watch his new stuff. It's much more relevant anyways.
Yeah, I did watch the Netflix.
Yeah. He's very observant and poignant and like a refreshing like point of view. So good stuff.
Yeah.
He's actually like, yeah, I feel like his stand-up was always good, but I don't know. There's something about like his age also adds to now like the wisdom of it.
I've liked him since 20 years ago, and I'm like,
Yeah.
wait, how old is he then now?
Mm-hmm.
He looks definitely older, and Black Don't Crack, so I know he was very young when I first saw
Yeah, he
his
might be
stuff.
around 50. Yeah, he started when he was 16. I cut out
Yeah,
that
I was
part
like,
of this. Mm-hmm.
I've seen him when he was really young, so by the time the Comedy Central, like, he was already working at his trade for a while, wasn't he?
Yeah.
But
Dave Chappelle, man, what a guy. If you haven't seen any of his stuff, go check him out. Unless it's the Chappelle Show. Don't watch that.
yeah, I'm glad I got to hear the whole story.
Yeah.
I knew there was something missing about the whole why he quit it and he was on crack or whatever. I was like, what?
Yeah. And what a crazy position for him to be in at the time too, because it's like if you speak out against it, you don't know how much worse it's going to get. And so that's why I think he felt like his only option was just to be quiet and leave. Be
quiet, back up, like and try not to get trapped again. It's like, oh.
All right. Well,
I mean, I don't mean to laugh. I only laugh because like a true comedian.
because you don't know what else to do. What are we doing tomorrow?
I want to cry.
Oh man. All right. Well, that's it for this episode. If you guys liked it, let us know. And yeah, go check out our merch store if you want to see buds or want some buds like the ones that we have. But if you don't have buds, we're your buds. We'll see you.
If you liked the video, leave a like and subscribe.